Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away?
Hey, good morning, everybody, for another really quick live edition of Ballpark Nation's off day, or off day with Ballpark Nation, whatever we're calling it today. It's actually kind of a sad day because today is the last shoot trip for season 2 of Ballpark Nation. I'll be heading to Arizona. Do you say it like they do, like people say Spain? What do they say in Spain? Barcelona, Arizona. Yeah, I actually got to look really, my Arizona inspired. All right, not too much inspiration here. My Arizona inspired Ballpark Nation t-shirt flying out to Phoenix in, about 9 short hours. It's going to be 115 degrees. So there might be a lot of sitting in my hotel room and editing until it's time to walk over for the ballpark tour and stuff. But Astros fans, big weekend. Astros at Yankees. It's always a big day when, Jose Altuve gets to go see his sons for the weekend. He's one of those dads that just doesn't get a lot of time to visit because he's on the road working. So it's always nice to see Jose Altuve go and visit his children. The Astros sit 1.5 games above the Seattle Mariners. I'm not one for making excuses, and I'm also not one for ignoring the fact that the Astros lost the series to the Chicago White Sox this year. So I'm not going to pile on the Mariners too much for taking a lot of work to beat a really bad White Sox team. And I'm also not one that believes in the transitive property of sports, where like Miami swept the Yankees and then the Astros beat Miami. So obviously the Yankees series is going to be a cakewalk. I'm not one to really believe all those things, but I will use the caveat that, the Mariners have a really tough matchup with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is always a good baseball team. They always pitch well. And the Mariners almost blew a 6-run lead to the White Sox on Wednesday. And then last night, it took them 10 innings and I think 6 relief pitchers to beat the White Sox in extra innings. Now, I understand why the Mariners went all in on that game yesterday. I mean, obviously, getting you a half game closer is a half game closer, but it does seem like it put them in a little bit of a bullpen situation those last 2 games as they get ready to face Tampa Bay. And I only say all of that to say that, if you take a pulse of the rest of Astros fandom, the 1.5 game lead seems insurmountable to some of our fellow members of the fan base. And I think these things ebb and flow. I think, I will be honest, and this does have the kind of season that if the Astros don't win the division, this is going to be a season not dissimilar to 2019 or even 2018, where a lot of what ifs could pop up. Because I think before the rash of injuries really started, this had the makings of a really special Astros team that could have been really dominant and could have gone on to win the World Series. And all of those things absolutely still could happen. But yeah, it's not great. You want to be more than a game and a half up, but it's better than being than a game and a half back. One of the cool things, though, that we did have yesterday, Spencer Arrighetti pitched for your Sugarland Space Cowboys, and I'm definitely not one to put a whole lot of stock in the results of a rehab assignment. I look at that the same way I look at spring training results. Though Spencer Arrighetti had mixed results when it came to who's here? Andy Tom Cheston has joined us. Andy, good morning.
Sorry, I didn't have my texty thing alerting me to messages that were coming until about 30 seconds ago.
Don't tell people that. You wanted to make an entrance, and my friend, Entrance was made. So, Andy, we're talking about. We'll back up a little bit. I was talking about how I don't necessarily believe in the transitive property of sports. That just because the Marlins swept the Yankees, we beat the Marlins. Da, 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 da. But I will say that. Tell me, yes or no. Does it feel like this game and a half up that we're seeing right now? Does it feel like it's a lot bigger to our fan base than, or does it feel like it's a deficit more than being a game and a half up when you read our fan base right now?
Well, I think this time last year we were tied with the Mariners for the division lead, so this is better. It certainly would be better to have the 8-game lead we had, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
But I would much rather be in the place we are than one of the teams chasing us. The reality is the Astros have their destiny in their own hands. I know you were talking about transitive property a little bit, but every series is its own thing. I don't think anybody expected the Astros to necessarily get swept in Boston. They did. Because of that negative momentum, people assumed we were going to get run in Miami if they're paying any attention, because up until that series, Miami had won like 8 in a row, in like 6 series in a row. I mean, they had a bit of momentum going.
they had the second best record in baseball, I think, for about 6 weeks. Like, it was something kind of dumb, the run they
And
were on.
the Yankees have been scuffling since before the trade deadline, and it's kind of hard to know which team you're going to see. Judge is back, so that certainly helps them. But I don't think you can look at a series that was played 2 weeks ago between two teams and then extrapolate what's going to happen this weekend because of that or because of this. I will say that both the Yankees and the Astros are teams that desperately need to win the series this weekend. And so it'll be interesting to see what level of baseball is played out of that desperation.
Yeah, the Astros have Hunter Brown on the bump tonight versus a guy that Yankee Nation wanted to name the heir apparent in something called a Schlitter, and now they want to DFA him because that fan base is as rational as our own.
Great.
And then, we've got Fromber on the bump tomorrow. I don't think that you're going to see the same level of – he tends to respond pretty well the game after a meltdown game.
Yeah, and I think the real big thing for the Astros this weekend is they have to be competitive, and I don't want to say you have to win, but you have to be more competitive in Hunter Brown starts and Fromber Valdez starts than we have been over the last several weeks, because you literally don't know what you're getting the other 3 turns out of the rotation.
Yeah.
You might have an incredible performance. You might have a really crappy performance. We've had very few that are in between those two things. Those 2 guys have to carry the load until somebody like Arrighetti can get some wind under him, get a little bit of confidence, or Javier comes back and he's going to be on kind of the same path that Arrighetti's going to be on. So there's going to be 3 starts every week where the rotation is trying to piece something together with bullpen pieces, with long guys. I think you're probably going to see a couple more opportunities for an opener type situation going into the stretch run of the season. But we've got to win games where Fromber and Hunter start. There's really no excuse.
Yeah, I kind of wish that they had rolled with the Hunter thing for Arrighetti's start as well. I think you would have given him a bit softer landing. And I know, like, on the one hand, yeah, he's a starter, but the Astros piggyback all the time. That's something those guys have done when have been in the minors their whole careers. It might have been a smarter idea to just get like somebody like Okert to get you through the first 3, and then
whatever random pitcher we're grabbing off the Braves scrap heap these days, let him start the game.
Yeah, Dana
probably be a big thrill for. I bet he's never started a game.
Dana Brown has been has definitely been at the goodwill of his former franchise. Mariners did sweep the White Sox, and I could be that guy and say, well, it's the White Sox and it's the post trade deadline White Sox where they did do some liquidating. But what I take away from that, as far as, again, there's this now opinion of, and maybe it's a rationalization, Indy, that we don't want to realize how bad the Astros have been. So we just assume that the Mariners in that time have been juggernauts. But really, I think they were 14-12 in July.
Yeah.
And
They've had a good week, but when we recorded on Tuesday, they had been 5-5 in their last 10 games. I mean, and so had the Rangers, for that matter. The problem is the Astros went 3-7.
Right. Yeah. So they have not been exactly. I mean, there's a world where if it had been a better team, we'd be 5 games back, like with how bad the Astros have been. And so I look at this series with Tampa Bay, and I see that Tampa, I think, is going to have a better starter on the hill every night, every game of this series. And then you look at what the Mariners had to do with their bullpen the last 2 games against the White Sox to get those wins. I mean, there's a real world where the Astros come out of this weekend back with the lead back up to 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly within the level of possibility. Again, it really depends on which Yankees team is going to show up, how much Judge is all the way back. This, unfortunately, won't be October Judge that we're facing, so he's likely to get a few hits against us. But the Astros just have to play well. Again, the position they're in, being a game and a half up, means if they win, other teams can't catch them. They just have to continue to win. The math is in our favor from that perspective. We just haven't seen consistent good baseball from the Astros since July 4th, and that's probably the most disheartening thing. I don't think the Mariners or the Rangers have necessarily done anything to take a commanding presence in the division. We've just played down for almost a month now. And we've allowed those teams to get back in it and feel comfortable about it. If the Astros start winning again and hopefully having these new guys in and solidifying now over 2 series and going into kind of what is a bigger stage, whether we agree with that or not, Yankee Stadium is a big stage. Hopefully that offense starts gelling a little bit because the Astros have gotten hits. I know we were talking about pitching a minute ago. We're losing games because we're not scoring runs. And when you're not scoring runs, you're not getting what we've seen all season. And really for a lot of the run, the last 8 years, we just don't hit really well with guys on base, and we don't hit really well with the guys in scoring position for whatever reason. I don't think it's anything more than the luck of the draw this year. But they've got to start figuring out how to get runs across the plate. That's the bottom line. And I know it's really simplistic. If you score more runs than the other team, you're going to win. But we have to consistently turn those hits that we're getting every game into runs every game.
Well, it's kind of funny looking at the rest of the schedule too. Like what a difference a day makes. So the Seattle wraps up their last game with the White Sox, and all of a sudden they propel to having a much more difficult schedule than what the Astros have the rest of the way. And you look at, again, I go to Tankathon, and they actually have Tampa Bay as 6 of their easiest games, which I think has got to seems wrong to look at it that way. But, the Astros are going to begin one of their toughest weekends. And then and I see Seattle actually losing a series to some of their easy ones. I still think there's a world where the to your point, this is really on Houston. This isn't about what other teams do. If the Astros can snap out of it and get going, and, I was at the series in Boston, Andy, that was a lot of stepping on your own dick. Like, just like with, just like the other day when they could have come back and beaten the Marlins, there were opportunities at least to have won both games 1 and game 2 in Boston. No, it was 1 and 3. Sorry, it was 1 and 3 when Fromber was on the mound. This baseball team is nothing about this baseball team should be seen as a negative if they just play up to the potential that we know this team has.
Yeah, and I think there's some positive signs. We talked Tuesday about Christian Walker batting 808 or posting an 808 OPS over the last 30 days. Didn't do quite as well in Miami as you would have hoped, but still was on base a lot and got a couple of hits. Yainer Diaz is starting to hit. Love to see him elevate the ball a little bit more because those ground balls tend to kill us at the worst possible times. But
yeah,
he's making contact, which for him will translate into X-rays hits at some point. And then Jeremy Pena has come back and just rolled out of bed and started hitting again, which is fantastic news. Those 3 things, if you continue that into September, that puts us in a really good position. Altuve is going to hit in September. Correa appears to have found, at least for a small period of time, some renewed vigor and energy around his game. I do think there is something to, learning a new position on the fly that kind of helps keep you focused in a lot of different aspects. And I think also having a chance to win games where he really didn't in Minnesota this year. I think when you're playing losing baseball, that kind of wears on you after a while.
Yeah.
So he appears to be re-energized by rejoining Houston. And
The fascinating thing about the Correa thing too was him not wanting to play short on on Thursday.
Yeah.
Or Wednesday, excuse me. And he's like, because he talked about he didn't count on what a less toll on his body playing third base would take. And I wonder how much of him, I wonder how much we're going to see that in his offensive production increasing the more that his body doesn't feel like it's completely beat up. Because for better or ill, he was always one that was very sensitive to how he was feeling about everything. Not necessarily a bad way. He was just very aware of himself.
Not in the Jordan way.
Not in a Jordan way. But he's the kind of guy where he's a finely tuned machine, and if you feel like that machine is out of whack in any way, it can affect everything else. Versus if you feel like the machine is humming along perfectly, you're going to see that affected in other parts of his game.
Yeah, going back to Christian Walker for just a second. In July, he posted an 833 OPS. In August, so far, I know it's only been a couple of days, but 1.042 OPS. So Christian Walker is doing everything he can to overcome the April through May that he had with this club. And I think he's getting a lot of unfair stuff. So if he starts hitting or keeps hitting, I guess the case would be, like I said, Yiner's coming back. There is this world where we see Yordan Alvarez in this lineup at some point before the playoffs. I hope that's true. There's Jake Myers potentially coming back, and I wouldn't have said this 6 months ago, but Jake Myers would be an upgrade in center field right now over what we're putting out every day. So there is the opportunity not only for the team as constructed to continue to win, but have some things they can look forward to that will improve the lineup in 2, 3, 4 weeks. The rotation hopefully is going to get better. And I think going forward, that's really my big question is what do you do in those other 3 starts every 5 games? Because it has been a lot of spit and bailing wire so far. And so far it's worked more than it hasn't, but I just don't know that that's maintainable. So if there's something that would give me a lot of pause, it's what do we do from a rotation standpoint the rest of the way?
Yeah, you never would have thought, like in April, we didn't know who Brandon Walter was, much less were we thinking to ourselves, God, I can't wait till Brandon Walter comes back, which should be soon. I really do think this was a bit of a rest. I mean,
who would have imagined Brandon Walter not needing Tommy John surgery would have been one of the highlights of my August.
Of your August, right. Yeah, no, I mean, and really and truly, but he's an asset. Although, I really want them to bump up Jason Alexander to start in New York. It's just too perfect. It would be on regular rest, and he's pitched well the last couple of games, and I just need to see Costanza on the mound
in New York.
Yeah. We're in cotton, Andy. It breathes.
I don't know if I'd hire him as my latex salesman, but I wouldn't mind seeing him take a turn in the rotation.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, I mean, because Colton Gordon's been pretty objectively awful. And, I wouldn't be surprised to see that strategy shift a little bit and maybe using – I know that there's a lot of like old school, older than us baseball fans who hate like the concept of the opener. But when you have like what we're looking at now is exactly the same situation that the Rays had when they invented this thing, 5 years ago, where your best pitchers are in your bullpen. And so deploying them in a way that to allow a bulk guy a soft landing by not having him face the first 4 or 5 guys in the order, to me makes sense with the way this current team is constructed.
Yeah. Like I said, I think we're going to see it a few more times before October rolls around, because I just think there are too many questions. And even in a world where you get Arrighetti somewhat competent, Javier comes back probably next week at this point. By next weekend, I'm guessing for sure, unless there's a setback. Garcia will be a couple weeks after him, and there's a world where JP France comes back. those guys aren't extended, and they're not extended at a major league level yet. I know Javier threw 77 pitches in his last start, so he's close, but they're not going to be 100-pitch guys coming back for a couple of times through the rotation. And so you're going to rely more on your bullpen, and we still don't know, let's say Arrighetti and Javier both take places in the rotation. That still leaves a fifth or sixth start every week where you've got to piece something together. And so I see a guy like Okert getting a start, or and bringing Blue Ball back to do some bulk work. He seemed to do better in that role than he did certainly in his other major league appearance this year.
Yeah.
But I think we have some guys that profile well with that. What you've seen is a transformation in our bullpen where we have a lot of guys who throw very hard but get really ineffective after about 3 batters. And so, like the Rays a few years ago, that's what the hand we're dealt. That's how we can play it, is every guy gets, three batters, throw as hard as you can, and then hand it over to the next guy. That may be a world or something we see soon.
And it does look like the days off fairy is going to help us out a little bit. We've had a lot of runs with no days off, but basically the Astros will play 6, we'll play 3 in New York, and then 3 in Houston against Boston, then a day off. And then there's 3 against Baltimore, 3 against Detroit, 3 against Baltimore, and then a day off. So it does at least look like they're getting a bit of a break in the calendar as the stretch run will start to kick in. And, you just look at that schedule and you look at, 3 against the Braves, and then you got, your last 6 against an A's team and an Angels team that will have nothing to play for. There's plenty of opportunity for the Astros to take control of this division again.
It would be possible for us to give Nick Kurtz some NIL money or something to sit out that series. I don't need to see Nick Kurtz in Minute Maid Park again. I don't know if it's a home series right now, but I don't need to see him anywhere near the Crawford boxes this year.
No, I do think it's in Sacramento, but my whole thing is I definitely want to see Nick Kurtz, and all I would just hold up is 4 fingers and have him go right to first base. Let me introduce you to Christian Walker. You're going to be seeing a lot of him this series. But at least it is a 3-game series, and at least they did get rid of that 100-mile-an-hour closer. So there's that.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about the Padres, I don't think. Everything is out in front for the Astros. They have to execute, and I hate to sound like Jimbo Fisher, but that's kind of where it is right now.
Yeah,
you've got talent, you've got guys coming back, you're starting to get healthy. They just need to figure out a way to put it together in all 3 phases. And so the defense and run prevention that they have hung their hat on all year long has to continue. They've got to take the opportunities when they come to score runs. That's been the biggest gap, I think, for the last month, is that the pitching and the hitting haven't been in sync. And so when you get good pitching performances, you're struggling offensively. When the offense is scoring runs, pitching is not necessarily helping out. So you need to get to the point where those things are synced up. And that's what Joe Espada and his coaching staff are paid for, is to start getting those guys lined up in the right direction, facing the right direction. And we're going to put outsized importance on this series this weekend because it's the Yankees. And I say we, the fans, it's not any bigger a series right now in August than the series against Miami was. We need to take two of three. We need to come back to Houston, take 2 of 3 against Boston, and start building up some more momentum, because that's how we built up the lead that we had, is by winning series consistently.
Yeah, and the team is healthier now than it's been, and you can't. I think the 2 additions, particularly the addition of Sanchez, is a revelation for this team. I think there's an energy that comes from this guy. Now, I don't believe in putting outsized importance on rehab starts, as I don't put outsized importance on spring training stuff. But all of the results for the rehab starts for the Astros have been mixed, and they've taken some explaining about why they're not as bad as we saw. But Luis Garcia last night, man, 4 shutout innings. I don't think he walked a guy, which to me is the biggest number of all of it. He's probably got one more start down there, because I think he only got to 70 pitches. But then hopefully we can see that translate, especially up against what should be the underbelly of a softer schedule.
Yeah, 80 seems to be the line for the Astros to make that call so far. So I would assume, like Javier is getting this week, Garcia is going to get at least one more start in Sugar Land or Corpus, wherever for the uninitiated, wherever they put you in the minor leagues for rehab does not have any bearing on what they think about your rehab progress or when you're coming back. It is simply when is the most convenient travel time for you to start.
Right. Yeah. And keep you on and some semblance of a regular number of days off.
That literally is all it is. So it could be Corpus, it could be Sugar Land. That's where he'll end up being. It will be interesting to me because some of the people that I follow and trust on the social medias are looking at this new delivery that Luis Garcia has, and it is absolutely fooling AAA batters. I don't know. I can't get a good feel on velocity, and everybody is kind of looking out the side of their eye about this new delivery that we haven't seen before. How is that going to translate? So that will be a very interesting thing for me to watch. I hope it's great. I hope nobody can pick up the ball out of his hand and, we have another invisible guy. I hope Javier has the same success when he comes back. But you're right. You could look at Javier's last start, and he had, I think, 3 solid innings and one inning where he walked 4 guys or something like that. If I'm remembering the last start right, might have been the one before that. But in that one where he walked a bunch of guys, he was throwing a very specific type of pitch in all counts
and all
to
counts
get work on. And obviously he needed the work because he wasn't able to place it over the plate or get guys to swing at it. Rehab starts are a lot like that. The big things you want to care about from a rehab start is, are you healthy at the end of it? And did you get your pitch count up? Everything else is things that we are not privy to as fans and shouldn't be, because they've been told to work on something during that time. It is not a situation where their only goal is to get batters out. And maybe that is a way that it used to be. The way the pitching lab with the Astros tends to treat these things is a time to enhance a pitch, learn to pitch it learn to throw it in different situations, and learn to trust it. And sometimes trusting it is throwing it over and over again until you get really comfortable with it. And I think you've seen that through a few starts. Now, I'm saying all this knowing that I was justifying some of the things we saw from Spencer Arrighetti in his minor league starts. And then he gets blown up for like 7 singles in the first 8 batters against the Marlins the other day.
But if Dubon makes one play and Sanchez makes another play, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, there was a lot of blame. Yes, Arrighetti was throwing meatballs, and make your jokes here, but the defense did not do him any favors. And you still had 3 chances to win that game, or at least tie it up, with bases loaded and less than 2 outs, and the Astros scored no runs in those situations.
Yeah. When I get into arguments about analytics, guys, and I was, I understand analytics in large scale situations, but the number of it feels like the number of times we've watched the Astros lose a game because they don't have the bat to ball skills that we used to see in the 90s because of how the game was played has been super frustrating, including one of the games against Boston and the game against the Marlins. That's 2 wins when you're now staring at a 1.5 game deficit. Those 2 wins are pretty big.
I know I've said it before in one of the incantations. There's probably a few different versions of what this show has become, but if you ever want just to be jarred by baseball, watch the Mets documentary that was on 20 for 20 a couple of years ago, and watch guys that are considered very, very good baseball players like Keith Hernandez, Darryl Strawberry, those guys, and how they approached at-bats. You would not recognize what they're doing as an at-bat because it's not just about distance and launch angle and 3 true outcomes. It is, how do I get the bat on the ball in every situation to give my team the best opportunity to score? I understand all the reasons that the focus is on launch angle and other things that they don't focus on now. But you'd love to see a guy in some situations recently choke up on the bat and just get the ball into right field. And you just don't see that as much anymore. And yes, that's my old man moment, because I'm sure, if somebody listening to this is going, well, they don't do that because the stats say the blah, blah, blah. I don't care.
And I know, and we know, and like I'm if let's say that, like, here's the, like, if it's a runner on first base and Jose Altuve is up, I'm not asking Jose Altuve to drop a bunt down to get him to second. Now, if you're in a tie game, there's a runner on second with nobody out, I might ask Jose Altuve, who's a very good bunter, by the way, to throw something down, because a sacrifice fly can win the game for you. And I don't see how. I guess I guess I'm becoming more and more less connected to how the game I think should be played. It just seems frustrating to me that that's always seems to be the situation the Astros are in.
Well, there's always a lot of, I would do this. If I were, opposing manager against the Astros, every time Framber Valdez was pitching, I would just bunt the ball every hitter,
right,
because he can't field his position.
Yeah. And it's like, well, in that play in Boston, right, where he did that, I think I understand he was out of a sense of frustration, probably still feeling burned by the loss he had the week before, because he didn't feel like the defense was in the right spot. But you had Pena at shortstop in that game. I don't think that was his day off. And then you had Correa at third base. You had a really good left side of your infield. Let them field their position. Let them do their job. Get out of the. It's like, I love it when there's a pop up on the infield and you see the pitcher run just to the foul line to get as far away from the baseball as humanly possible. I wish. What is the sometimes discretion's the better part of valor. Maybe Framber should look at that.
He just reminds me, every time he fields the ball, he reminds me of a baby giraffe, and he has the same arm. So,
yeah, I mean, that's definitely him. I guess, we're getting close to wrapping up. Overall, your confidence level, though, still. I mean, I still feel like the Astros win the division by 3 or 4 games. I'm
not in a panic mode yet. Maybe I am after this weekend, but I expect the Astros to take 2 of 3 in Yankee Stadium, which I know will go against recent history in Yankee Stadium. But this is a Yankees team that's reeling. The Astros have shown more recent signs of life with winning the series in Miami and stopping a team that, frankly, had a lot of momentum going for them. And I think 2 of the pitching matchups favor us. So with all that, Correa going back to New York as an Astro, the boos will be plentiful. And it won't just be all focused on Jose Altuve, although Jose still lives in all of their hearts and heads. And absolutely without paying rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am hopeful that the Astros contain Aaron Judge. And if you contain Aaron Judge and to some extent Stanton, because he usually has, if he's healthy, he'll have games against us. But I just think the Astros right now are a better ball club at the major league level than the Yankees, and they should win.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if they've not rushed Aaron Judge back a little too early because of desperation, which, I guess maybe you could say the same thing about what's happening with Paredes, although it's a more extreme situation. But
I was wondering if there, was something like urgent, because I have my MLB app on my phone, but I have notifications turned off because I don't like knowing what happens in a baseball game necessarily before it happens on my screen. And somehow, even though I have notifications turned off, they let me know that Aaron Judge had been activated from the IL. So this is important, big news. But it also begs the question, did the Yankees activate him or did MLB activate him? Maybe that's how Aaron Boone found out. Just, hey, you have Judge back tonight because MLB app said so.
Yeah. And I guess he's just going to DH, right? Because he's got something going on in his elbow.
Yep.
So, that's not nothing too. That takes away a really good defensive outfielder, because he's a good defensive outfielder when he's healthy. So, yeah, I'm just not going to I'm not going to start freaking out until the math just doesn't math anymore. But I think the Astros did yeoman's work surviving these injuries, and now these injuries are over with. And I see this thing. It was just like last year, Andy. We were able to predict almost to the day when this team would start rallying and get back in the contention. And I just don't see them losing contention. I think they, again, win the division by 3, 4, 5 games.
Yeah, but it's on them. I would much rather be in the situation the Astros are in, that you do control your own destiny to some extent. and don't have to worry about what the teams behind you are doing if you just keep winning games. And, you've got a chance to, in a couple of weeks, make a statement against the Tigers and potentially still be in the position to be one of those top 2 seeds in the American League. There's a lot still in front of this team.
A lot still in front of this team, and we will be in front of them, the people, again on Monday. I'm heading, Andy, to Chase Park tonight. My first ever and probably my last ever trip to Chase Field or Chase Park.
Are you going in the pool?
I've packed my swimming suit. I don't know if the women,
you need to get some B-roll of you in the pool.
I do. I don't know if the ladies of Phoenix can handle me in the pool, though.
I think it's time to find out.
I think it's time to find out.
They're used to hotness, Jim.
That's right. All right, for Andy, I'm Jim. This has been Off Day with Ballpark Nation.
Ladies